B&T is known for engineering some of the most innovative and high-quality firearms in the world. When it comes to subguns, B&T makes a lot of them, and a lot of people ask the same question over and over and over again. Which one should I get? So today we compare B&T's two offerings with non-reciprocating charge handles, the SPC9 PDW and the APC9 PRO. The SPC9 offers exceptional modularity, ease of handling, and compatibility with modern tactical equipment and features a hydraulic buffer similar to the APC9. The biggest difference is the AR charge handle added onto the rear. It was originally developed for law enforcement contracts requiring a training platform with both MP5 and AR controls. It's also rumored that Carl Brugger drew the first concept drawing of this gun on a napkin while he was at dinner. And now for the APC9 PRO. The APC9 PRO is a cutting-edge submachine gun developed building on the successes of the original APC9. The APC9 PRO features ambidextrous controls and dual-folding side charge handles that are non-reciprocating, along with the ability to accept Glock lowers and P320 lowers. The APC9 PRO uses closed-bolt hydraulic-assisted blowback to operate and provides exceptional reliability and accuracy. Okay, so now we're going to get on to the head-to-head portion of this video, APC9 versus the SPC9 PDW, and I have the 10 categories that they're going to be judged on right here. They go as follows: controls, ergonomics, footprint, weight, build quality, aftermarket, trigger, cool factor, accuracy, and takedown. Okay, so we're going to start it off with the SPC9, and for controls, it's going to be the same as the APC9, except I'm going to give it 1 point for the charge handle placement, which puts it at a 10. The charge handle is just a little bit further forward, and you can just C-clamp from the magwell, and it's just a little more comfortable. So the winner for this is going to be SPC9, shockingly. Which brings us to ergonomics, which is a 10. The SPC9 is actually surprising me. It's just eating the APC9 up in these early rounds, and that's because the length of pull on the APC9 is quite short, and the length of pull on the SPC9 is a little bit longer. It just retains that point. It's a 10. And don't go run out and buy an SPC9 that quick, because now we're on to footprint, which is a 7. Seeing how the SPC9 didn't even make the B&T smallest subgun list, it's no surprise that it's getting dock points on this. External buffer tube, it's a 7. And that brings us to weight. The SPC9 gets an 8 in weight. And I have two, one threaded and that one's a little lighter, but it's still a little bit lighter than the APC9 and the APC9K, so it's going to get a point from them. And I gotta keep this 100% honest, and I gotta dock a point on build quality for the SPC9, because it's got a couple little quirks that could have been overlooked during the engineering process, and they weren't. Like the fact that the irons don't clear the charge handle, and the fact that you can't use the QD on the back. Two minimal things, but I gotta dock it the 1 point. 10 out of 10 build quality, -1 for that engineering, or lack thereof, should I say. And that brings us to aftermarket. Aftermarket support is going to be a 5, basically the same as any B&T APC9. I'm just going to go with a 5. And that brings us to the trigger, same as the APC9 or any other B&T subgun or rifle. It's a 7. It's not great, it's okay, it's decent. And that brings us to cool factor. Although I love the look of the SPC9, I can't help but think about the haters. And the SPC9 has some haters. And they're always keen to point out the fact that it's basically an overglorified AR9. And as much as I want to disagree with them, they are kinda right. And it gets a 7 for cool factor. Which brings us to accuracy. And the accuracy is pretty good out of the SPC9. It's basically a tie between the APC9 and the SPC9 PDW, so it's a 9 for accuracy. Last but not least, we have the final category, which is takedown, and the SPC9 scores a 8 for takedown, for 2 reasons. It does have less pieces and no retaining lug, but it's harder to take apart because you need to put downward pressure towards the muzzle on the stock to get the pin out, and you have to make sure that the stock is fully retracted, so it gets an 8. Which brings the grand total for the SPC9 to 80. And next we have the APC9 PRO. And for controls, I'm going to dock it just 1 point for the right-hand side safety selector switch being a little bit too big and it digs into your fingers. And I got a video on that, so check out the comments below and I'll have it pinned. Okay, up next is the ergos. On the APC9K, it only gets a -1 for the ergos because of the LOPs on most of the coolest stocks. They're just kind of short. And technically, the safety selector is in the right spot and it's fixable. Next, we have footprint. And due to the APC9's internal buffer and short receiver, it's really small. It gets an 8. Next up, we got weight. And the APC9 Limited with the telescoping stock and the aluminum lower is not a light gun for its size. But man, does it shoot nice. My mom was just crushing with the setup. For that, it's going to get a 7. And now we're on to build quality. For the APC9 PRO, it's going to be a 10 on build quality. This is a beautiful piece of Swiss engineering, and you really need to see it to believe it. Those who know. 10. Now we're on to aftermarket, and the aftermarket is pretty slim. Although there are some triggers that fit in the lowers, you do lose that EU style safety where you can safe after fire. It's a 5. And speaking of triggers, the B&T OEM trigger has a comfortable polymer shoe and a decent brake that is clean like a mil-spec trigger. Nothing special, nothing to write home about. It's a 7. Next up we have cool factor, and although the MP5 is probably still the most infamous gun in the movies, mark my words, the APC9 PRO is going to take over that title in 50 years, so it's going to get an 8 for cool factor. Next up is accuracy, and on the APC9 PRO the accuracy is really good. You can shoot 4-inch plates at 100 yards, it shines within 25 yards, and at 15 yards you're shooting holes on holes on holes. It's the most accurate today, and it gets a 9. Last but not least is takedown. You just take off the lower, you take off the stock, you pull the bolt back to where the retaining lug comes out, you pull the recoil spring out, and then you pull the bolt out. APC9 gets a 9 for takedown, which brings the grand total to 80, which is probably not helping any of you out trying to make a decision on which one to get. I know you always hear, get both, and you might realistically just have to get both if you can't figure out which one you want after watching all of my videos. So my final thoughts are that B&T makes some amazing guns and that you really can't go wrong with any of them. I think you need to think about that before you make your decision and stop stressing. And I'm going to give you just a couple reasons of why you should pick either one. First, the most important thing is, how does the gun make you feel? I'll admit that every B&T gives me some sort of giddy feeling when I hold them, but they all do different things. You have to choose which one is right for you if you're only going to get one. And second, what are you looking to get out of this gun? Do you need the AR charge handle, or do you prefer the MP5 side charge? Is the size the ultimate factor, or would you rather have a slightly softer shooting gun? Let me know in the comments which one you would choose, and if I made this decision a little bit easier for just one person, this is all worth it for me. I'm Bosco the Shooter. Thanks for tuning in to Spent Casings. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned till next time. Peace.